A Racer Reborn centers around the United States Marshal Mason Pollard, who I play, who specializes in erasing special cases from the face of the planet, basically. So when they found themselves in trouble for whatever reason, he forges their death, fakes their death, creates a new identity, and moves them to a safe location in the world. The interesting thing then comes with how much the sort of world has changed since the original, because with this, it's the reimagining of the Arnold Schwarzenegger version from 1996. The world has changed quite a lot in the 20-something years. You know, it's quite a lot easier to find someone, which is sort of a kind of horrifying concept when you think about it. But social media and cameras everywhere, everyone's walking around with a listening device in their pocket. So we had to sort of adapt the film to the new modern eyes everywhere type world, which was quite interesting. But that's basically sort of the rundown of the film. And Mason runs into a young woman, Rina Kimura, who has found herself in some trouble and proves to be somewhat a prickly customer.
Prickly customer, I like that phrasing. What was it like for you working on this film? I mean, it was action-packed.
It was, yeah, it was. And honestly, the real credit for the success of this film really lands on 3-4 people. So John Pogue, who is a very passionate, very intelligent director who came in knowing exactly what he wanted and managed to fit in, you know, a huge amount in a fairly small space of time. And then Hunt Lowry, who is one of our producers, who has done these amazing things in the past. It was a real pleasure to work with him, and it was a pleasure to work with John, of course, who Hunt took on the action department of the movie. So we were sort of shooting two different things in tandem. And then the stunt coordinators, who was V and Stuart, who were just the most incredible guys. They held our hands through it. They choreographed everything. Their department was so professional and so well versed in what they did that not only did we feel safe, but I think we kind of achieved something pretty miraculous with it.
And as you mentioned, this is the reimagined version of the 1996 original starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Did you get any advice from him or from anybody from the original cast?
No, I wish. No, I think we actually did talk about it at one point, which is interesting. Like, should we reach out and discuss this? And I think we sort of landed on the point of like, Arnold did such an amazing job, and Vanessa and James Caan and all of these guys who put this movie together back in the 90s, they did such an amazing job. It was actually one of my favorites growing up as a kid. And I think it being one of my favorites as well, is it comes with this sort of like, you want to show respect to the original film almost by not mimicking it. You know, we don't want to do the same thing that they did. So I came to this as I would with any other job. I came to it with completely fresh eyes. I almost like staved away from watching the original, which was sort of killing me for the process. Because weirdly, it was on everywhere in South Africa. Like every hotel we stayed in, it was the first movie that came. It was so odd. But that was or at least my point of view, is I wanted to sort of see this as a new job, a new venture, and that's how we kind of tried to tackle it.
Yeah, kind of its own entity and its own reimagined, as you said. You did tell me just a little bit ago that you happened to work with some real U.S. Marshals. What was that like, getting trained for this process?
So Lenny, it was all digital, because this was all like all of the pre-production of this film, and actually the filming of this film, we were still pretty heavy in the pandemic. So it was, you know, COVID protocols and this, that, and the other. And Lenny, as I mentioned, was in Jersey. So I managed to FaceTime with him a couple of times, and we chatted on the phone a bit. And they just sort of explained the basic sort of rundowns of what the US Marshals go through, the history, the training, what their day-to-day life is job-wise, how, that sort of impacts like general life and this, that, and the other. Lenny, honestly, is one of the most amazing men. He was so generous with his time. He was so passionate about what he did. And he was so willing to help me, who really had sort of zero experience in this field, which was really lovely. And to work with someone like that, really fuels my passion as well. So that gave me more sort of energy and willingness to learn. And I was studying sort of fairly nonstop. So he was incredible, really incredible.
That's awesome. Well, this movie is jam-packed and sounds like it could potentially become another fan favorite along with the original. But another fan favorite that people are still talking about is your role in Shadowhunters.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how you trained for this movie and maybe like tied in some of the action that you learned taping that series.
So it was two very, very different skills. The Shadowhunters stuff was very sort of dance-like. It was almost balletic in its movement. And we worked really hard to sort of make our characters, because the Shadowhunters have been around for, thousands of years. So we worked really hard in making them these sort of graceful, almost like Greek warriors. That's sort of how we wanted to fashion them. And then when it came to Eraser, obviously it's a much more military style of martial arts or fighting. It's much more sort of, let's put this threat away before it causes any damage. So there was a part of it that my previous training was useful, understanding the impacts your body takes when you're doing stunts, and my martial arts instructor and our stunt coordinator on Shadowhunters used to say to us, if you want to do your own stunts, that's all well and good, but you can't come to me every time you have a splinter or you've bashed your knee. Like, that's not how that works. You have a bone poking out, then come and see me and like, we'll cool cut. But I can't come every time you've like got a bit of sand in your eye. You can't come to me and be like, hey guys, I have a bit of sand. You're like, no, if you want to do your stunts, you've got to be aware. You're going to get a little bruised up every now and then. So that mentality going into this was very useful, because it does happen. Like, as safe as it is, you're still throwing yourself around. It's pretty taxing on your body. And then also knowing sort of how to stretch, knowing how to work out the correct muscles in my body, understanding the dynamics of like how to throw a punch, how to throw a kick, that sort of stuff, which is now sort of, after 4.5 years on Shadowhunters, is kind of ingrained in me. Understanding that and then transitioning that into the more military style, I think was very useful. And I'm not 100% sure if I would have been able to do it without Shadowhunters, to be honest. So yeah, that I think is the main plus there, because they were very different, but they're through lines in any art form, I guess.
It all sounds a little bit too rigorous for my capabilities.
Honestly, so much fun. If you ever get a chance, give it a go. Like, some of the classes they have are incredible. So if I can recommend it for anyone very highly.
Oh, all right. I'll have to check it out. Speaking of Shadowhunters, though, you launched a new podcast.
Yes.
With your co-star, Kat McNamara. What has the response been like to that? I'm also curious, on top of that, your reaction to people still being such major fans of it.
Yeah, the reaction was incredible. Before the podcast had even launched, we were sort of climbing our way up the top 10 of movies and TV in the world, which was wild to us. So so much of what we do is for fans. Obviously, we don't have a job without fans. So much of what we do is for them. So to be able to give people sort of a real glimpse, and also without sort of the worry of like, am I going to say something wrong or whatever? Like, the show's done, so it doesn't matter. Like, I can kind of say whatever I want, which is nice. So it's a real honest look behind the curtain, which I think is really cool. And we get, we just recorded an episode with Glenn Warner, who was our B camera operator since season 1, since like day 0, prep day. He has been with us the entire journey. So he gets to talk about and explain to people who, if we're doing our job correctly, sort of forgets that there's other people in the room. He gets to talk about what it's like being that other person in the room, which I think is really cool. And something that I would have loved listening to as a kid, especially as an aspiring actor. So it's a really beautiful thing. And we have never really been that separate from the fans, to be honest. We've sort of kept up the interactions over the years. But to see that people are still passionate enough about the show, especially to listen in on how the show was made, is really quite wonderful. So it's a very nice thing for Kat and I to be doing for us. We get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Is there anything that you have like learned or picked up on, or maybe Kat noticed something that you didn't, that you are now realizing like, wait, that happened?
Oh my God, so much. They're like every time. So the guys Propagate and iHeart are producing this, and our producing team on the thing, they give us this amazing brief on like the episode and the breakdowns and like fun facts and whatever. And I read the brief like as we're going through, I'm like, I didn't know this. This is crazy. Like, where is this information? What was I doing? Like, I didn't know any of this. There were like stuff about my co-stars that I've been with for 4 or 5 years, and I was like, really, you did this thing? I had no idea that that was a thing. So yeah, it is a learning experience. And I think, again, because we're away from the show now, we get to take a step away and sort of almost rewatch it as a viewer. And just as a viewer, you do notice things, you do see things, and learn things, which is kind of really cool. It's kind of a nice thing to be able to watch it anew and be taught something.
So what do you think of the fans being still so hungry for more content from Shadowhunters, even though the show ended?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky because it was based on books, and there was so much more in the books that could have been unraveled. But that being said, I also think that there's a world in which we wanted to, not that we had any choice, we were cancelled, but there's a world in which we want it to end before, you get stuck in sort of a loop of doing the same stories. And like, we've seen this before, there's sort of a world in which you want to end strong. And I really think we did end strong. I loved the ending of the show. I think Todd and Darren, who were our showrunners and writers, they did such a good job encapsulating everything in those last 2 episodes and rounding out everyone's story and leaving it sort of open-ended, which a lot of the fans that we spoke to were a bit like, we're not sure, that's a great idea. But in my head, we sort of gave the story back to the people who made it successful. And you almost have the ability to like create your own ending with these characters that meant so much to so many people. And I think that's kind of wonderful. I think that's kind of a wonderful and very unique way to end the story. So I loved it. And I think that journey for me couldn't have been more perfect. And I think trying to revisit it or over visit it has the risk of souring the experience. And that's not something I would ever want to risk, because it's got such a big place in my heart.
I have so many colleagues who would be remiss if I didn't ask you, but you
Please.
sort of just answered it. But would you ever revisit it and go back and do something more with the show? Or do you feel like this podcast is kind of taking you back enough and giving fans sort of what they want out of it?
I think, can you relax, please, bud? Sorry, my dog is, I don't know what he's doing. He's
bring him on. Come on. He wants to be part of it, probably.
Dan.
Oh.
Ignoring us. He knows the voice is there, but he's grumpy that we're not talking to him.
He's like, this isn't good enough, Dad. I've got bigger things.
I'm the star of the show. What's going on? You're right. You are the star of the show. I think the only world in which I would probably go back and do it would be like if they did another version of the story in like 5 years or something, and they wanted to bring Jace back, but he like actually aged throughout it and had a little cameo or something that way. That would be cool. That would be an exciting thing to do. Sort of the Spider-Man thing where like you got all of the something along those lines. That would be really fun. Like I say, this character meant the absolute world to me, and the story meant the world to me. So something like that. But like I say, and you said that I sort of answered the question already. The concern for me would be to like overuse the story, and especially overuse Jace. Jace, I was Jace for 4 years. He was my life every day. And the last thing I would want would to see the integrity of that character be spoiled. So I'm not sure. Maybe it would depend on if someone approached me with a script and if I thought it was, the right choice. I don't know.
Never say never, right?
Never say never.
That's
never
the best way to put it. Yeah. Kind of circling back to your dog. Your dog and cat made fans go crazy with their cuddles.
Yeah.
What's their little love story like? What's their relationship like? Because people love your dog.
Oh my God, I'm about to burst everyone's bubble. There's no love story whatsoever. That one particular photo that ended up on Instagram was just luck. It was just complete luck. She was there. The cat was there for about 2/3 of a second, and I just managed to snap it, and then she immediately off. Like there's no love there at all. They like tolerate each other. No, that's not true. They cuddle with me in bed. they cuddle me in bed, much to the chagrin of my girlfriend, who ends up with no space. They do cuddle in bed. They sort of, and every now and then I kind of catch them. It's like when I'm not there, they're like secret lovers. They're like when I'm not there, they sort of cuddle, and then as soon as they hear the keys in the door, they just scarper. But that one particular photo was more of a luck thing than anything else.
Well, now we know the truth, that people loved it. Dan's in the background probably thinking, Dad, why are you talking about this?
Yeah,
blowing my cover for all the fans.
Honestly, he's the best creature. Both of them, they got me through. I was sort of stuck on my own in Los Angeles during the pandemic, and I was away from my family, and I had my friends there and stuff, but I hadn't seen my family in like 2-something years. And these guys really got me through it. It was, I had these creatures that I love just unconditionally, and they love me unconditionally, and we got each other through.
For fans of the original movie and fans of Shadowhunter, what can they, kind of expect from Eraser Reborn, and what do you think they'll like out of it?
For fans of Shadowhunters as well, I'm in it, so that's a good thing. Oh God,
good start. Okay, good.
How horrendous. No, it's got similar sort of bones, I guess, to Shadowhunters. It's action packed. There's twists in the story which we kept putting in Shadowhunters, and there are definitely twists in the story in Eraser Reborn. There's sort of a charming like levity to it, I think, which we tried really hard to put in throughout the story, which was a big theme in Shadowhunters. Eraser Reborn has this charming levity to it, even though the situations are pretty dire pretty constantly. There is still an opportunity for a bit of a giggle, which I think is great. And I know I personally love a good sort of action semi-comedy.